Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Jenny Dildine, the LDS Mission Coach, and you are listening to the LDS Mission Podcast, episode number 225, Applying the Rule of Thirds. I'm Jenny, the LDS Mission Coach, and whether you're preparing to serve a mission, currently serving, a returned missionary, or a missionary mama like me, I created this podcast just for you. Are you searching for epic confidence, ready to love yourself and to learn the how of doing hard things? Then let's go. You totally already have what it takes to step powerfully into your potential and never question your purpose again. It's time to embrace yourself, embrace your mission, embrace your life, and embrace what's next. Hey there, how is everybody doing today? Where are you at in the world? Are you listening to this podcast via Google Drive on your mission? Are you a missionary mom? Are you a returned missionary? Are you a mission leader? I want to say welcome to all of you, parents, preparing, currently serving, returned missionaries, leaders, families. You're why I'm here. To hang out with you guys and to hopefully get you some good tools and resources to make your mission what you want it to be and your post-mission life what you want it to be. Something I've been thinking a lot about the last couple days is just how, there have been a lot of world events and events that have happened in the United States over the last month or so. And like heart-wrenching things, of course, going on. But something I've been thinking about is how a lot of people then kind of pivot and talk about that and pivot and talk about that and pivot and talk about that. But the thought that I keep having come to my mind is like, that's not your job. Your job is not to talk about current events, because guess who's still serving their missions while all of these current events are going on? Guess who still has to show up and get up on time and have their personal study, right? Guess who is still talking to their missionaries once a week? You guys are, okay? So I am here as a resource and a support to you, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm not pivoting based on what's happening in the world. Now, I am interested in hearing what's going on for you and what's going on in your world as a missionary, as a returned missionary. And I get so much of my content, right, from my sessions that I have with clients and from the people that are in Mission Prep Plus and from the live event I did a few weeks ago. That is where I get all of my content from. But if you see me on social media and you're like, why is Jenny not talking about that? That's going on in the world. Well, it's because while everyone else is talking about those things, I have committed, and I committed a long time ago, that I am going to be thinking about you, missionaries, returned missionaries, the LDS mission, mission leaders, parents, families, every day. So you're not going to get an email from me about current events. You're going to consistently be getting content from me about the mission and what's going on for you on the mission or in your return missionary experience. And hopefully all of this can apply to you. And so all I want to say in this is I see you, even though it maybe feels like a lot of people don't. Like they're talking to you as a missionary or return missionary, and then all of a sudden they pivot because something else is going on. Which is fine. Like that's the way the world works. I'm not saying there's anything wrong or bad about that, but I am just saying like you want someone you can count on to consistently show up and share ideas and resources and support for missionaries, for return missionaries, for missionary parents, families, and leaders. I'm your girl. I'm not talking about current events. I'm talking about missions, LDS missions. In fact, I was at a business conference a couple of weeks ago, and people were like, I was a coach there helping people that were starting their businesses and things like that. And I had a little breakout group, and they were several of them in that breakout group were hoping to start a podcast. And they're like, what's the name of your podcast? And I was like, the LDS Mission Podcast. And I was like, do you have any confusion at all about what this podcast is about? Right? It's not called the Current Events Podcast or whatever. It's about the mission, and I'm here for you. I see you. I've been where you are. And if I haven't been where you are, I've certainly talked to someone who's been where you are. That's where all the content comes from on this podcast. So I don't know. I was feeling like passionate about that today for some reason. So there's my little soapbox about that. So the content from today's episode actually comes from this business conference that I was at. And I was, talking to a lot of people and then listening. It was an event, 12 clients in 12 weeks. My friend Jody Moore was putting on that event. And so there was tons of business owners there. And then I had a little breakout room to help people with their business. Well, as Jody was talking, one of the things that she mentioned was this idea of the rule of thirds. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is something that I want to talk to the missionaries about, to the returned missionaries about, to mission families about, is the rule of thirds. Now, it might feel a little bit off, kind of, I don't know, not off brand. That's not the word I'm looking for, but kind of feel a little bit different than something else I've taught you here on the podcast, which is the 50-50 rule. And I feel like this comes up in every single episode, probably, is that we are meant to, on this earth, feel emotions that don't feel good, and we are meant to feel emotions that feel good both. And that is not because the world outside of us is good or quote unquote bad, but it's because we have this higher and lower brain where, we're going to see the example that always comes to mind. And it's the first one that I pull from when I'm working with clients is when my grandpa dies, as he did several years ago. Sometimes I'm going to think thoughts like, oh, I'm going to miss him. And then I feel sad. And then sometimes I think he's in a better place. And then I feel content and peace, right? So it's not that the world outside of us is good or bad. I mean, yes, there is some bad in the world, I will say. There is also some good. But this idea of the 50-50 comes from our own kind of lower brain, higher brain kind of interplay that we have in this life. And I believe one of our goals in this life and on your mission is to learn how to, instead of using your higher brain to judge the experience you're having, that you use your higher brain to have compassion and understanding for the experience that you are having, the same way Christ would have that compassion for you. So this is a little bit different of a spin on a similar concept, is the rule of thirds. And immediately what I thought of with this rule of thirds is that I used to be a photographer. I did a little bit of photography before I jumped into coaching. And I think I was pretty good at it, but what I found is I just didn't like the editing, like just editing in, my office all by myself. Like I liked the photo shoots, but I didn't like the editing. And so anyway, and then coaching kind of came along, and that's another story for another day. And my son was coming home from his mission, another story for another day. But the thing that also reminded me is recently my daughter is in middle school. She's on the yearbook staff, and she's also in photography for the first time. So I've been reminded of this in photography. If you know, there is in photography composition, which is basically the way that the picture lays out. There is something called the rule of thirds. And what this rule is that you want to put your subjects, so all of y'all that are taking selfies or whatever you're taking on your phones for your mission, the rule of thirds is you want the subject to be, picture the, like a tic-tac-toe box, basically on the square of your picture, or the rectangle of your picture. And you want your subject to hit where those lines come down. So you want it on the right third or the left third or the upper third or the lower third. This might be why Sometimes if you see like a portrait or something, it might look a little off because the eyes end up either too high above that top third line or too low. And really, a portrait should have your eyes right on that top third line. So I hope that makes sense. So we basically put a tic-tac-toe box on there. Anyway, little photography tip. Who knew you were going to get that today? So what's interesting is that if someone's looking for a photography podcast, they might think that this is about that, but it's not about that. It's actually just a metaphor, I think. And we're going to talk about a few like metaphors today or analogies about this rule of thirds. And so when you divide that frame into 3 equal parts, horizontally and vertically, instead of centering the subject in the middle, boring, you place it at the intersection along those lines. And so I think this is applicable because with the rule of thirds that I'm going to teach you now in life, like most of the time we are trying to intersect kind of that balance, the perspective, and we're not always trying to just be like dead set in the middle or on opposite extremes. So this idea, right, is that instead of just thinking of the 50-50 rule, what I've been thinking about and what Jody Moore had mentioned was that she always expects in her business that there's going to be a bottom third where we feel stress, doubt, overwhelm, anxiety, and feeling inadequate. This is what I've often referred to as the tough 50, right? And there's going to be a top third, which is our confidence, courage, accomplishment, and fulfillment, where we feel like we're doing awesome, everything's great, right? And we've talked about these 50-50s, but when we talk about in thirds, what I loved about this idea is that there's actually a middle third where we feel a little bit meh, when we feel a little bit bored, when we're going through the motions, where it's not too hot and it's not too cold. And I loved thinking about it this way because whatever goal you're working towards, and whether that's, if you're in your master's degree or if you're in a new transfer, or if you're working towards baptism goals or contacting goals or something like that, or maybe your goal is just to finish your mission, whatever's going on for you, is you're always going to have a top third, a bottom third, but you're also going to have a middle third. And here's why I think that this middle third is important, is because I want to reframe this as like not something that's meh or boring or like messy, but super valuable space to be in. Now, if you think about a roller coaster, like think about how you feel on the high highs of the roller coaster, and then think about how you feel on the low lows of the roller coaster. But it can be exhausting if we're just always going from high to low, high to low. Like we want this middle ground to sometimes show up where we're neither here nor there. I think I've talked about it on the podcast a little bit, maybe like a holding pattern too. So here's the benefits of the middle third, is that's where we can rest and recharge. Like your nervous system isn't in overdrive. You're not like super heightened or super low. You're just right in the middle. I think that we can have clarity in the middle third. So without this like high level, like the high highs and the low lows, there's less drama, right? Like we can see things more objectively. And we find that a lot of times consistency or this habit stacking can come when we're in this middle third. It's where we build those habits and we make steady progress. So this is like, think about examples of like reading your scriptures every day, listening to a conference talk every day, making sure you work out every day. Like this happens most often in the middle third. Okay, because sometimes when we're low, we're just trying to figure stuff out, but it's really valuable and helpful. Like I've mentioned a couple weeks ago on the Highs and Lows podcast, I think was the name of it. And there's so much fun stuff that happens in the upper third, right? But this sort of just consistent one foot in front of the other is important. And often we have great outcomes from just showing up in the middle third. Okay, so here's a few analogies that I thought of to enrich the concept that I'm trying to teach you here. So remember the story about Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So she went into, I don't remember exactly how it worked, but basically Goldilocks, she went into a house and she was really tired and she tried. One bed was too big and one bed was too small and one bed was just right. And there was some porridge left out on the table, and one bowl of porridge was too hot and one bowl of porridge was too cold and one bowl of porridge was just right. So even though just right isn't super exciting, it's not dramatic, it is sustainable, and it's where we can have this steady growth, this steady step before step. So the other analogy I was thinking about was a music triad. So if you know anything about music, there's a triad and it's 3 notes together. There's a bottom note, a middle note, and a top note. And if you only play the top and the bottom notes together, it sounds kind of hollow, actually. But as soon as you add the 3rd note in the middle, it becomes like full and rich and beautiful. It just like fills out that experience. And life's the same. I think if we only ever have highs and lows, it feels incomplete because there's no middle ground where we can just kind of relax and rejuvenate and do those 3 things: rest and recharge, clarity, and consistency. So I want us to think about that. And here's the way that it applies to the mission specifically, or any other goals you have after the mission, to, get your nursing degree or move up the corporate ladder or whatever it is you're trying to do. What I see most often, right, with missionaries specifically, is that we celebrate the highs and we celebrate when we reach our goals. And I get basically emails from everyone who's ever gone through Mission Prep Plus. I read their emails, their weeklies, and this is what people are talking about, is they're talking about their highs, right? Like, we found this person and that was a miracle, and we found this person and that was a miracle, and we found this person and that was a miracle. And sometimes they'll talk about their low. I'll be like, well, that was a bummer because this guy ghosted us or whatever. But when we only focus on the highs, when we only talk about the successes as miracles, and those are the only things that we celebrate, we put ourselves in a tricky situation when we have lows and when we're not meeting our goals and when things aren't turning out the way that we want to. So when you categorize everything as high highs and low lows, then it leaves something out. But what if the middle third is also a miracle? Like, what if just the fact that you get to be on your mission at all is a miracle? What if the fact that Jesus died for all of us is a miracle? What if the change that you experience on your mission is a miracle, or the hard times that you're able to get through is the miracle? Okay, so the middle third is what can ground us and give us stability instead of only focusing on the wins and the successes or the losses. It's almost like the anchor, the middle piece. And so when you only chase the highs, the crashes into the lows feel harder and sharper. But instead, like, really relish the middle third. It's pretty awesome there. And it smooths out life and it smooths out your mission. So if you're feeling bored or meh, or just like, if you're sort of like, I don't know what my purpose is right now, it's okay. Like, take that as the middle third. I promise you, like, this is true about the human experience and true about like me owning my business. Is half the time I'll sit down and I'll feel inspired to record these podcasts and feel like really moved and, really like motivated, kind of like in my little soapbox at the beginning of this episode, right? I see the purpose, I see the vision, I feel the motivation. Sometimes I'm in a low and I think I'm not good enough, and I'm, like no one's listening, and why does it even matter? And all of those types of feelings, like insecurity and all of that. And then another third is just hit record, we're doing another podcast. Hit record, we're doing another podcast, okay? And it's just consistency. And it's just the middle third where nothing feels super high or super low, but we're right there in the neutral, right there in the middle. And there's something really like cool and grounding about the neutral, about the middle third. So again, I've taught a lot on here about the 50-50 rule and the half positive in air quotes and half negative in air quotes. But the rule of thirds, I hope, gives you another perspective and another lens by which to see your mission experience or your post-mission experience, or even if you're a mom observing what's going on the mission, that there might be days where we're just like, okay, just one foot in the front of the other. And it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you've lost the spirit or lost your purpose or anything like that. It's just part of that. If you're going to be at a high and then eventually there's a low, there's something in between. There's that middle third. Or if you're at a low and eventually you're going to get to the high, there's going to be something in between. And that's that middle third. So I want to invite you to kind of ask yourself, like, which third are you in this rule of thirds as it applies to life? Are things feeling too hot? Are things feeling too cold? Or are things just right? And we're not designed to have either extreme for extended amounts of time. Like, sometimes it's okay to just be meh. So if you're in the low third, remember it's temporary. If you're in the high third, remember it's temporary. If you're in the middle third, it's also temporary. And so you can honor it as a protective and kind of grounding place before you go up the next roller coaster, like height to the next drop, okay? So if you're in the top third, you can celebrate, but remember, it's just not sustainable long term. And maybe the miracle is just the fact that you get to be on the roller coaster at all. Just that you get to have porridge at all. Just that you get to be in a photography class at all, right? This is an amazing life and mission that we get to create here. And what a gift it is to be on this roller coaster of life. And sometimes it's okay to just kind of even out those highs and lows and be right in the middle third. So I just want to encourage you to embrace this rhythm of thirds, this rule of thirds in your work, on your mission, in your life. And this middle third is where we see a lot of growth, where we see a lot of consistency, and where balance is kind of cultivated. So I hope that this gives you something to think about. I hope it helps you make peace with the fact that you might be a little bored or feel like you're going through the motions. It's totally fine. It's part of the rule of thirds when it comes to life. All right. Thinking about you guys every single day, and we will talk to you next time. Serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints can present a unique set of challenges, and mindset and emotional well-being is more important than ever. So thanks for being a part of this community where we share real-life mission stories, support each other through struggles, and keep creating the mission and post-mission experiences that we truly want. Don't forget to check out the show notes for additional resources and share this episode with someone that you think might need it. Thanks so much for being a part of my world, and know this: no matter which part of the mission experience you are involved in, Jenny, the LDS mission coach, is thinking about you every single day.